Hey guys, tonight we step into the heart of an ancient secret, a practice so powerful that once you do this, no one and nothing can affect you anymore. Picture yourself in a quiet room, the soft hum of a fan blending with your steady breath, your mind slowly unfurling from the knots of daily chaos. You probably won't survive this without feeling some resistance because, honestly, who likes the idea of being untouchable in a world that thrives on drama? But here's the truth. This is the path to true freedom. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious who's joining me from where as we ease into tonight's journey. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin with non-attachment. The liberating power of letting go. This isn't about becoming cold or indifferent, but about releasing the tight grip you have on outcomes, people, and your own sense of self. When you stop clutching so hard, you become like water fluid, adaptable and unstoppable. Historically, the Buddha taught non-attachment as a core path to enlightenment. He recognized that clinging to things, people, or ideas is the root of suffering. Historians still argue whether the Buddha's teaching emphasized complete detachment or a balanced engagement with the world. And here's a quirky tidbit some monks used to practice sky burial, literally letting their bodies be carried away by vultures, a profound metaphor for ultimate non-attachment. You realize that by embracing non-attachment, you create space for peace. You no longer need to control or be controlled, and this space becomes your fortress against external chaos. Tonight, breathe deeply into this newfound freedom. Let non-attachment be your shield. You build your inner calm like a fortress brick by brick until no storm outside can shake your foundation. This calm isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's a steady presence that anchors you in the wildest weather. Think about the Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who taught that true strength comes from mastering your inner state rather than trying to control the world. Historians still argue whether Stoicism was primarily a practical guide or a philosophical ideal. Here's a quirky tidbit. Marcus Aurelius carried his meditations on tiny scrolls. Basically, the original pocket philosophy books talk about mindful multitasking. You begin to notice how calmness isn't about suppressing emotions, but allowing them to pass without getting entangled. It's like watching waves on the ocean from the shore. You see their rise and fall, but remain unmoved. In your daily life, this inner calm means finding moments of stillness, a deep breath before reacting, a pause before speaking that gradually build your resilience. Tonight, feel this calm spreading through your body, a quiet strength no chaos can touch. You practice mindful observation, becoming the silent witness to your thoughts and feelings instead of their captive. This skill lets you watch life unfold without being swept away by the currents. Remember the Buddha's teachings on mindfulness, encouraging you to observe sensations and mental states without attachment. Historians still debate whether mindfulness was originally a meditative technique or a broader lifestyle practice. On a quirky note, some monks used to meditate in caves surrounded by bats and dripping water, a constant test of their focused awareness. You realize how often you get tangled in your mind's drama, reacting to every passing emotion or thought as if it's a command. But with mindful observation, you create distance, watching thoughts like clouds drifting across a clear sky. In daily moments, this might look like noticing irritation arise and pass, without snapping, or simply observing your breath without trying to change it. Tonight, settle into this role as observer. Let your mind's chatter fade into the background as you witness your inner world with gentle curiosity. You anchor yourself in the present moment, the only place where life actually unfolds, and disturbance loses its grip. Being fully here now is your refuge and your power. Think about Zen masters who practiced just sitting, or shikantaza, emphasizing presence without goal or expectation. Historians still argue whether this practice emerged from Indian Buddhism or uniquely developed in Japan. A quirky tidbit: some Zen practitioners use koans, paradoxical riddles, to shock the mind into awareness, like a spiritual pop quiz. You notice how past regrets and future anxieties lose their hold when you focus fully on the now. The present moment contains all the peace and clarity you need. In daily life, grounding yourself might be as simple as feeling your feet on the floor or noticing the sensation of your breath entering and leaving. Tonight, bring your attention gently back to this moment, the still center amidst life's swirl. You embrace impermanence, the ever-changing nature of all things, as your greatest ally against suffering. When you accept that nothing lasts forever, your mind loosens its grip on pain and fear. Consider the ancient Indian philosophy that inspired Buddhism, which centered around the transient nature of life. Historians still argue about the extent to which this concept was radical or a continuation of existing beliefs. A quirky fact, some monks carried sand timers as reminders that moments slip away, urging mindfulness and acceptance. You realize that clinging to permanence causes endless frustration. Relationships, feelings, possessions all shift and fade. Acceptance of impermanence brings freedom, like releasing a bird from a cage. In your daily life, reflecting on impermanence helps soften attachments. When loss or change arises, you meet it with openness rather than resistance. Tonight, breathe deeply and let the flow of impermanence wash through you, cleansing resistance. You find strength in silence using it, not as an absence, but as a potent force that centers and empowers you. Silence becomes your refuge and your weapon guarding your peace from disruption. Think about the ancient monks who practiced vows of silence to deepen their meditation and spiritual insight. Historians still debate whether silence was primarily a tool for discipline or an end in itself. A quirky tidbit, some silent monks developed elaborate sign languages, turning quietude into a creative expression, a precursor to modern nonverbal communication. You notice how speaking less often calms the mind and reduces unnecessary conflict. Silence creates space for clarity, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. In daily life, practicing silence might mean pausing before speaking or choosing solitude over unnecessary chatter. Tonight, embrace the power of silence, letting it settle your mind and strengthen your soul. You let go of ego, the ever-demanding self that craves recognition and control. As you release this inflated sense of importance, you shield your peace from the storms of external judgment and expectation. Consider the Buddha's teaching on anatta, or no self, which invites you to see beyond the illusion of a fixed identity. Historians still argue whether this was a radical departure from existing spiritual ideas or an evolution of them. A quirky tidbit, some monks took vows of anonymity, living in disguise to transcend ego attachment. Imagine that a spiritual version of being incognito. You realize how much ego drives your reactions, defensiveness, pride, fear of rejection. But as silence deepens, the ego's grip loosens, leaving space for genuine humility and freedom. In daily life, notice when your ego flares and practice stepping back, observing rather than engaging. Tonight, welcome the spaciousness that comes when ego quiets and your true self shines. You cultivate the habit of responding instead of reacting, shifting from impulsive emotional outbursts to deliberate, thoughtful actions. This subtle change makes you unshakable. Think about the Buddha's calm in the face of provocations. Stories tell of him remaining peaceful even when insulted. Historians still debate how much of these tales are metaphorical or historical fact. On a quirky note, some monks trained by intentionally provoking one another to build patience, like a spiritual version of roast battles. You begin to see how immediate reactions often worsen problems, while responses grounded in calm bring resolution and respect. In daily life, this means pausing before replying in tense moments, choosing words and actions that align with your inner peace. Tonight, practice this pause. Let your silence shape your power. You nurture compassion without losing your boundaries, finding the balance between a soft heart and firm self-protection. This equilibrium lets you stay open without being vulnerable to harm. Consider Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, revered for embodying infinite mercy while maintaining unwavering strength. Historians still debate the origins and evolution of this figure across Buddhist traditions. A quirky tidbit: some statues depict Avalokiteshvara with multiple arms, symbolizing the ability to reach out and protect many beings at once, kind of like the original multitasker. You realize compassion doesn't mean tolerating abuse or sacrificing yourself. Instead, it's about responding with kindness while honoring your own limits. In your daily life, this might look like saying no gently but firmly, or stepping away from toxic situations with love rather than anger. Tonight, breathe into this balance of openness and strength, letting compassion flow without losing yourself. You embrace solitude, discovering its power as a space for rejuvenation and clarity. Being alone doesn't mean loneliness. It's a conscious retreat to connect deeply with yourself. Think of the great sages who sought solitude in caves and forests, like the Buddha's meditation under the Bodhi tree. Historians still debate how much solitude versus community shaped early Buddhist practices. A quirky tidbit: some hermits used natural camouflage, covering themselves with mud or leaves to blend into their surroundings, turning solitude into an art form. You notice how solitude allows your mind to settle, distractions to fade, and insight to arise. In daily life, carving moments of solitude, whether a quiet walk or mindful breathing, nourishes your inner well-being. Tonight, welcome solitude as a friend, a sanctuary where your true self can flourish. You find patience as your armor, standing firm through life's inevitable storms. This patience isn't passive waiting, but an active endurance, a steady flame in the wind. Consider the ancient Buddhist practitioners who cultivated patience as a key virtue, understanding it as essential for spiritual progress. Historians still debate whether patience was emphasized equally across all Buddhist schools or varied with regional cultures. A quirky tidbit: some monks practiced forest patience by enduring biting insects and harsh weather without complaint, turning discomfort into discipline. You begin to realize how impatience only fuels suffering, while patience grounds you in acceptance and resilience. In daily moments, this might mean breathing deeply during delays or choosing calm when provoked. Tonight, let patience wrap around you like a protective cloak, steady and warm. You surrender control, releasing the illusion that you can dictate every outcome. This surrender isn't giving up, but embracing life's flow with trust and grace. Think of the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, or effortless action, which aligns with Buddhist teachings on non-resistance. Historians still debate the origins and influences between Taoism and Buddhism. A quirky tidbit: some Taoist sages practiced spontaneous laughter to dissolve tension, a joyful surrender to the moment. You notice how holding on tight to plans often creates tension and frustration. Letting go opens space for unexpected opportunities and peace. In daily life, surrendering control means adapting gracefully when things don't go as planned, trusting that the path unfolds as it should. Tonight, breathe out resistance and invite the gentle flow of surrender. You cultivate equanimity, the serene balance that steadies you through life's highs and lows. Equanimity isn't indifference, but a mindful presence that embraces all experiences without being swept away. Consider how Buddhist monks practice equanimity through meditation, observing sensations and emotions without clinging. Historians still debate whether equanimity was a core teaching from the Buddha or developed as part of later traditions. On a quirky note, some monks train by sitting through loud noises or distractions, strengthening their inner steadiness. Imagine meditating through a rock concert. You realize that clinging to pleasure or resisting pain only deepens suffering. Equanimity lets you ride life's waves with calm and grace. In daily life, equanimity shows when you handle criticism without defensiveness or savor joy without attachment. Tonight, breathe into this balance, feeling steady amidst change. You set healthy boundaries, learning to protect your peace with kindness and clarity. Boundaries aren't walls, but gentle fences that honor your needs while respecting others. Think of the monastic rules in Buddhism, where clear guidelines create space for practice and community harmony. Historians still argue whether strict monastic codes were practical necessities or spiritual ideals. Here's a quirky tidbit some monks would use: humorous stories or riddles to teach about boundaries without harshness, kind of like ancient spiritual comedy. You notice that without boundaries, your energy scatters, leaving you vulnerable to overwhelm. Clear limits help you maintain balance and authenticity. In daily life, this might mean saying no to requests that drain you, or stepping back from draining conversations with gentle firmness. Tonight, reflect on your boundaries, nurturing them as vital guardians of your well-being. You become an observer of your thoughts, shifting from being the actor in mental dramas to the calm witness. This perspective creates distance, allowing you to choose your responses wisely. Consider how mindfulness meditation trains you to watch thoughts arise and pass without attachment. Historians still debate the origins of this practice within different Buddhist schools. A quirky tidbit: some meditators describe thoughts as like clouds or passing cars, always moving, never permanent. You realize that by observing thoughts without judgment, you reduce their power to disturb your peace. In daily life, this might mean noticing when a negative thought arises and letting it drift away rather than engaging with it. Tonight, settle into your role as observer, embracing the spaciousness this brings. You release judgment, freeing yourself from the mental chains that trap you in criticism and resentment. Letting go of judgment opens a path to compassion and peace. Think of the Buddha's teaching on right view, which encourages seeing things clearly without bias. Historians still argue how this principle was interpreted across Buddhist traditions. A quirky tidbit: some monks would perform acts of playful mischief to challenge judgments and provoke laughter, turning seriousness into lightness. You notice how judgment creates barriers between you and others, as well as within yourself. Releasing it softens these walls. In daily life, this might mean noticing when you criticize yourself or others and choosing instead to understand and accept. Tonight, breathe into this openness, letting judgment dissolve. You cultivate self-awareness, the foundation of invulnerability. By deeply knowing your patterns, triggers, and true nature, you build a shield no external force can penetrate. Think of the Buddha's practice of introspection, turning the mind inward to understand suffering and liberation. Historians still debate whether this introspection was a gradual process or sudden realization. A quirky tidbit: some meditative traditions use mirrors or chanting to heighten self-awareness, a bit like spiritual biofeedback. You realize that without self-awareness, you're tossed about by external events. With it, you navigate life's storms with steady wisdom. In daily life, practicing self-awareness might mean journaling emotions or pausing to notice bodily sensations. Tonight, turn your gaze inward, strengthening your inner fortress. You let go of grudges, releasing the heavy chains of resentment that bind your heart. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing harm, but freeing yourself from emotional captivity. Think about the Buddha's emphasis on compassion and forgiveness as pathways to peace. Historians still debate whether forgiveness was seen as a personal act or communal necessity in early Buddhist communities. A quirky tidbit: some monks practiced forgiveness meditation, silently sending goodwill to those who hurt them like emotional alchemy. You realize how clinging to anger poisons your well-being, while forgiveness cleanses and restores. In daily life, this might mean acknowledging pain and consciously choosing to let it go. Tonight, breathe deeply and open your heart to release. You discover joy within a wellspring, untouched by external events or circumstances. This inner happiness becomes your refuge, unwavering and pure. Consider the teachings of Buddhist monks who find bliss in simple mindfulness and contentment. Historians still argue whether this joy was seen as a byproduct of practice or a direct goal. On a quirky note, some monks celebrate mindfulness festivals, dancing and laughing as expressions of inner joy, a spiritual party you didn't expect. You notice how chasing external pleasures often leads to emptiness, while turning inward reveals lasting contentment. In daily life, this means savoring small moments, a breath, a smile, a sunset with full presence. Tonight, rest in this inner joy, letting it glow softly within. You live unaffected, the natural outcome of deep inner work and unwavering practice. This state isn't numbness, but a vibrant calm that lets you flow through life's ups and downs with grace. Think of enlightened figures in Buddhist history like Milarepa, who faced immense trials yet remained unshaken. Historians still debate the line between myth and reality in these stories. A quirky tidbit: some masters were known for spontaneous singing or dancing as expressions of their unshakable joy. You realize that living unaffected means freedom from the roller coaster of external influences, anchored in steady inner peace. In daily life, this manifests as calm presence in chaos, compassion without being overwhelmed, and strength that is gentle yet unbreakable. Tonight, breathe deeply and settle into this unshakable state. Know that through your practice, nothing and no one can truly affect you anymore.